And I think that's important. And that's part of my role as a witch as well. Educating. Witch means wise. It is someone that educates themselves, that finds their own information and isn't told it by someone else. So I think a lot of people can relate to that. And it's a person that really takes charge, takes their power back. And so I think that's a big part of how I describe it to people. It's about taking my power back, taking back control, taking back the reins in my own spiritual method of expression.
This is Chocolate and Coffee Break, a compassionate proposition, a space to share stories, bridge divides, and spark meaningful connections. So grab your chocolate, pour your cuppa, and let's break down barriers, one conversation at a time. And now, here's your host, Andrea Pudding.
Welcome to another chocolate and coffee break. I hope you've got your chocolate and your cuppa and you're ready to enjoy another story, another amazing person who we're going to have a great conversation with today. Because this lady was recommended by my 4-year-old granddaughter Zoe. She insisted I invite her favorite podcaster on the show, Hana O'Neill, the Suburban Witch. So Hana is a spiritual practitioner who identifies as a witch and a pagan. Now, this story is kind of important to me because when my daughter was a teenager, my granddaughter's mother, she began exploring her spiritual path. And as we encouraged her to do, and this is where she ended up. And so it's great to be able to explore this and talk about the things that we went through with having a teenage witch in our home. So I'd love to welcome Hana to Chocolate and Coffee Break.
Hello, Andrea. Thank you so much for having me here today.
So I'd like to start with a heart-opening question. And my question for you today, a little pack, is what's a belief you've outgrown and what replaced it?
Oh, I love this question because I have this unique background of growing up evangelical Christian. So we had a lot of beliefs that I have outgrown. And I think some of the most healing ones that I've outgrown and replaced are ones about the afterlife. So the fear of things like heaven and hell and eternal punishment or eternal reward, those have now been replaced with a different view of the afterlife, more of a reincarnation kind of belief, if you're familiar with that, and more of a cycle rather than a final outcome based on your life, your one life here on earth. So that's been a really healing belief to heal a lot of fear and trauma around those previous beliefs that I've now shifted to. So yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, I must admit I outgrew that one a long time ago as well.
It can be a
Yeah,
hard one to outgrow.
yeah, it is I think it's a really important one to outgrow because, well, for me, I know other people might want to believe that way, but it gives you a different understanding of life.
Yes, definitely. And I can talk on the reasons for it being there for a long time, but it's funny because it actually is heavily influenced by early pagan beliefs in biblical times. So that's actually where it originates from the Hellenistic concepts of the afterlife that we saw in Greece, back in ancient Greece. So that played a big role in the development of the belief of heaven and hell as people know it today. But it's just been an interesting part to learn the origins, how it got there, how it evolved to what we have today. And that was, I guess, fundamental in me removing it from my belief system.
And that's what brings up an important thing is that there is so many of the, I'm going to say, Christian beliefs and traditions that are based on paganism,
Yeah.
and which, of course, as my daughter grew and discovered things, it certainly opened my eyes up to that. So you went through a similar journey to what my daughter did, I think, in exploring that. And so what led you on that journey?
So we were in the church, and it was a pretty strict church. I look back on it now, and it was more of a cult in a lot of ways. Mainly because when we did leave, we were actually kicked out and then shunned, and that doesn't happen if you're not in a cult. Shunning
Right.
is one of the big parts of that. So that was an abrupt, change from something I'd grown up with, known all of my life, believed heavily. I thought I was going to be a preacher. I thought I was going to be a missionary. I had all of these beliefs that suddenly got ripped away. And it took quite a while. This is not a quick flip. Suddenly I'm a witch, because I had been taught that witches were evil and
Mm.
of the devil and all of these sorts of things. So for a number of years, I identified as simply agnostic or Christian without a church. I tried a few, none of them fit right, none of them felt right. And so I kind of just floated for a while, but I always said there's something there, I just don't know what it is yet. There's something there, I'm just not sure what it is yet. So agnostic felt like a really good title for a long time, until I started traveling. I traveled over to the US, and I was in Louisiana, which I see as a very potent spiritual place. And I actually had a couple of very intense spiritual experiences. Paranormal might be a better term to use. And it kind of shook me to my core enough that I went, what on earth just happened? How do I explain that with my current worldview of Christianity? And I was quite terrified. I did immediately go to, it must be demons that are plaguing me. Uh, but all of the techniques I'd learnt in the church didn't work. And I ended up, basically, there was a kind of like a haunting experience in a place I was staying. And I spoke to the people I was staying with, and I said, I've just had this very strange experience. I don't know what to make of it. Has anyone ever mentioned this before? And they turned around and believed me immediately and said, oh, you're in Louisiana. We have all sorts of crazy stuff. I'll call my friend. He's a witch. He'll come down and he'll sort it out for you. And I'm sitting there thinking, he is a witch? None of those things compute in my brain. Someone thinks they're a witch and it's a guy. So a little bit of culture shock in that regard. But he came along, he did some divination. He told me something had attached to me from New Orleans when I traveled across, and that he had sorted it out and put protections in place. And I didn't believe him. I just thought, okay, whatever, I'll be polite. This is my friend's friend. Thank you so much. See you later. But it worked. Whatever he did worked when my fervent prayers did not. And I thought, oh, that's actually surprised me. So it kind of made me reconsider a few of my beliefs, and it made me curious. And that curiosity turned into this little thread that I followed back to New Orleans. I spoke to some voodoo practitioners to get a bit more information, make some more sense of it. I hired a book from the library. I started listening to, YouTubers talking about it, got another book, found a podcast, and it just became all these amazing threads and rabbit holes that I started exploring and deep diving into. And as I learned more, I learned about some of the things that I was very familiar with from the church, things like gifts of the spirit, things like prophecy, having the gift of prophecy, which I was told I had. I was able to divine the meaning of dreams, and I had visions of the future. And suddenly I'm seeing these in a new light that, okay, maybe that's not just a Christian thing. Maybe that happens in any religion and it's just a people thing, and maybe I can still, still hold on to that, just with a different word. And psychic was such a bad word for a long time, but I started to warm to it. Intuitive, psychic, magic, all of these things I started to learn about and bring into my repertoire a little bit. And in doing all of this, it turned into a bit of a spiritual awakening where more things started happening, more synchronicities, more dreams, more visions, more psychic, intuitive hits, and more paranormal experiences as well. So things with ghosts, and that's again where that reconsidering the afterlife came in. And next thing you know, I'm calling myself a witch and a pagan and feeling really good and whole and calm about it. But it took probably about 10 years of following those threads to actually get there.
Mm. It's quite a story, and it does take time to really find your own spiritual home, and w and that's what we found with my daughter while she was practicing Christianity and exploring re paganism at the same time, so it's a really interesting experience. So let's just take a quick chocolate break and listen to our sponsors who help to make the show happen. And while we're there, why not subscribe, like, and comment?
When I hit perimenopause, all I heard was doom and decline until I took a sacred pause and I went searching for women who were radiant after menopause, like Dr. Christiane Northrup, Dr. Vandana Shiva, and the late Dr. Gladys McGarry, still shining at 103. In this book, I share their stories and wisdom and the magic that menopause truly holds. 7 Wonders of Menopause is a sacred reminder. You're not ending, you're returning. Available at independent bookshops in Australia and Amazon around the world.
Did you know that only 30% of speakers are women and that only 13% of panels feature women? In order to change that, there is now a directory at womenspeakers.com.au where you can go and search for a speaker. We also have groups on Facebook and LinkedIn under the name Australian Women Speakers, where you can just go and post about your event and women will respond.
And we're back with Hana O'Neill exploring what it means to grow spiritually and discovering your own path. So, Hannah, you call yourself a witch. Now, I'm sure you get a lot of interesting responses with that. How do you travel with that?
So for a long time, I didn't bring it up too early when meeting people because it is quite a strong word and people
Mm,
don't know what to think of it. It is not as commonly found, I guess, out there in the world. We are a bit of a minority. And whilst witchcraft is a growing popular spiritual movement, it is still very individual. We don't really have churches. We might have groups, circles, things like that, but a lot of people practice independently on their own. And so a lot of regular people in the world don't know really what to make of it, or they might not have heard someone refer to themselves this way. Again, there's cultural beliefs, there's religious beliefs around the word as well. So now I'm a lot more bold about it. I own it a lot more. But I do get a lot of people as soon as they go, "Oh, but are you a white witch? Are you a good witch?" And depending on the person and the relationship or where I am, will depend on my answer as well. If it's just a passing acquaintance, just, "Yes, I am." Go on about my day. But if there's a little bit more of that relationship there or a little bit more scope for discussion, then I might say something like, witches are capable of anything morally, ethically, same with everyone. I consider myself an ethical witch, but I don't use the terms black witch or white witch
mm.
because there are racial connotations in that kind of language. And so I do try and kind of push back on that because we see that language is really important and a lot of people don't understand that nuance there. So I don't like to equate those with terms like white is pure or anything like that. And I think that's important. And that's part of my role as a witch as well. Educating, which means wise. It is someone that educates themselves, that finds their own information and isn't told it by someone else. So I think a lot of people can relate to that. And it's a person that really takes charge, takes their power back. And so I think that's a big part of how I describe it to people. It's about taking my power back, taking back control, taking back the reins in my own spiritual method of expression. So it gets a little bit of mixed reviews. Some people nod politely and go go on. Other people get really interested, and I have so many friends that go, "Oh, this is my friend Hannah. She is a witch. Isn't that so cool?" So it's really wonderful to see so many people accepting, celebrating, and applauding what I do as well.
Yeah, and I applaud that too. While because I've had to go through that experience with my daughter, and so I read every book that, because at the time she was about 14, so I read every book that she read, and I lurked on the back of the forums that she was on. There wasn't Facebook then. So I lurked to see what was going on and to understand that. And I found myself having to explain to other people, because she would just say, "Hey, I'm pagan," in the middle of a church activity. So then I would have to then explain to, people would come up to me very concerned about her welfare. And I would just have to then explain to them what paganism really is and what witchcraft is about,
Mm-hmm.
and those similarities that you talked about the psychic and the prophecy. So there's other similarities too, isn't there, that you pick up on that help people to understand?
Oh, there's definitely lots of similarities. And, I remember asking my mother, who went to Bible college and was in the women's ministries, I asked her one point, what happens to people who have never heard of God? Do they just automatically go to hell? And she said, no, that's not what happens. If you want to, you can see God in every flower, every leaf, every animal. And that sort of sparked this like, oh, really? Really? And she said, yes, it's evident everywhere. And I think a lot of Christians might understand that point of view. And so I often use that as a term to be like, why wouldn't God be in everything else as well? Why not in every religion? Why isn't there this spark of magic, creator, amazingness in other things as well? And I think we've all got this wonder at the world, right? Even people who are atheists and scientists might look at the world and go, this is still just amazing and incredible, and what are the odds? That's so phenomenal. I think we can all align with that sense of wonder and see that it can be expressed in many different ways. I express that wonder through, giving back to nature, connecting in with nature. Other people might connect in through prayer and song, and I do some very similar things. When I'm doing something like spell crafting, I see that as a bit of a spicy prayer. It's going, this is what I want to happen. This is who I'm sending healing to. And I'm using some physical elements to solidify that intention and make it really clear in my mind. So that kind of way of looking at it, because I lost that. I thought, I can't pray for people anymore when they're going through a hard time. If I'm not Christian, I can't say I'm praying for you, but I kind of can. So depending on the person, I might say I am praying for you. If maybe they wouldn't align with me saying I'm lighting a candle for you, but it's the same concept. So there's so many similarities. I do work with deities, so gods, goddesses, things like that. I am polytheistic. I believe in multiple gods, but I also think that doesn't discount potentially a creator, whether it is the Christian God or something else, who knows? I don't believe it is, but I'm open to the fact that I don't know everything. And I think none of us do. So again, that's another little connection point that all of us have the potential to be right or wrong. And I think that's also beautiful.
Yeah, and for me, it's always, if you think you know, if you think you know everything, if you think you know everything about God, you don't.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
definitely.
I've always looked at it as, we all have our GPS set for the same spot, but we all travel in different directions, in different cars, in different vehicles, but we're all heading for the same place. Our journey is just completely different, and that helps. I think it's a good analogy to help us look at, there is no right and wrong. It's just a different journey.
Yes.
And that's something that we can all appreciate and explore, because our journeys are all meant to be different and exciting. And the thing that I do appreciate so much about the pagan witchcraft way is that appreciation of the world, of the earth. And my grandchildren are being brought up with those traditions, and their appreciation for things is just amazing in the natural world, and that's a really important thing for us to relate to right now. So let's just jump into another quick chocolate break and see who is helping us create this show.
Introducing 123 Read to Me. We give books to children who don't have books so they can succeed. Help us give away books to supported playgroups, kindergartens, schools, community events. Come and sort books. Donate money. $5 equals one book in the hand of a child. Because just one book a day creates clever, kind and confident kids. 123 Read to Me. If this interests you, let's talk.
You've ticked the boxes: career, commitments, calendar that's more packed than your pantry, but something's still missing. In Compassionate Purpose, Andrea Pudding invites you to stop chasing busy and start living with intention. This book is about real fulfillment through small acts of compassion, purpose-driven service, and meaning that last. No pressure, no perfection, just purpose with heart. Compassionate Purpose, Discovering a Life of Fulfillment. Search for Andrea Pudding on Amazon.
And we're here today with Hana O'Neill, the Suburban Witch, and I'm loving this conversation. I'd love for you to share with us what is it about your beliefs that you love the most, that you want to share with the world?
I think there's a real amazing part of the work that I do this professionally, that helps me to feel really connected with people all over the world. It helps me to see the similarities like we're doing today, see it in a new light, in a really compassionate light, whereas previously it had been us versus them. You know, I'm this, they're that. There's a separation. Now I don't see that. I see it as, oh, I understand what you're talking about through these little points as well. And I find that relatability, that connection point is so much clearer now, and it's so much more diverse. I feel like I can connect with anyone. Whereas previously I probably wouldn't have wanted to, wouldn't have been encouraged to. And I think witchcraft and paganism, it removes a lot of those barriers. It does make you want to connect with a tree, right? Because it's a tree and because it's amazing. It makes you want to connect with the people around you, the nature spirits, the person down the road, the person across the world. You can find these little threads of connection point everywhere. And I think that is such a wonderful, beautiful, intricate way to go about the world. And seeing those ripples of healing in a lot of ways, and help that I'm able to give to people through the work that I do, through finding clarity with a tarot reading, or looking into their birth chart, or connecting in and picking up on something that they usually already know. And it's a bit of validation, oh, okay, I've already been thinking about that. How did you know? I said, well, because you're supposed to take it by the reins and go with that feeling, right? And we need people like us, the healers, the spiritual folks, the connected folks, to sometimes just give us that little nudge to do what we already know deep down. And it's just so beautiful seeing that replicated time and time and time again. It just makes it so fulfilling, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yep, it does. And I know people especially in their darkest moments, will turn to someone like yourself just to have that reassurance of what is going on internally.
Mm-hmm.
So and I find that a really fascinating thing, because the rest of the time it's like, oh no, we don't do that kind of thing. But hang on a minute, I need that.
Yeah. I get lots of people a lot of the time. Am I on the right path? Was this the right choice? Is this how I'm supposed to go forward? Those sorts of questions are really, really common. Or the other one is, I feel stuck. I feel stuck and I don't know where to turn. And just helping people to unravel that a little bit is so beautiful, to be able to help people through those sticky times, those tricky times.
Yep. And there's one thing that's just coming to my mind is is the golden rule. We all have this golden rule, and it's interesting that every religion has a golden rule. And whenever I've presented the whole thing of golden rules, I've always added the pagan one onto that. So I'd love you to share that with us.
Well, I think the golden rule for paganism, because it can be such a varied umbrella,
Yeah.
for me, it sits with do no harm.
Mm.
That's my golden rule. Other people have, if they're Wiccan, which is a witchcraft religion, they might have the rule of three, which is very similar, right? It is whatever you do comes back three times. So if you do good, it's going to come back times three. If you do something that's maybe a little bit morally questionable, maybe that'll come back times three as well. But I think that do no harm is very poignant for me in my spiritual expression.
And that is an important thing. I find that's a really important thing for people to understand when they start to get a bit fearful about witches, paganism. It's like, no,
Yeah.
there is nothing for us to fear.
Yeah.
So, do you feel? What do you think the alternative spirituality contributes to the broader world? What do you see that this is contributing?
I think for myself, witchcraft is a lot of times an aspect of spiritual expression that's available to anybody. And it's really, really great for people who don't fit into boxes to have a place where they can burst out of that box, burst out of those constraints of generally organized religion or high control religion. There's so many people who are very spiritual people, but they're just something doesn't feel right in maybe traditional religion. So having an alternative form of spirituality is so crucial for so many people. It can be a really healthy way to work through a lot of life's ups and downs, to have this method of things you can turn to, these tools in the toolbox, spiritual tools basically. So I think that is really great for people on an individual level. And I think on a collective level, witches historically have been marginalized. And so we align with people who are marginalized. So speaking up, I see so many witches speaking up for people who are in minority groups, who are, the victim of injustice, and fighting for them. Like we talked about before about do no harm, but everyone has their own moral guidelines and their own moral compass. And there are a lot of witches doing justice work, which
Yes.
I don't think is doing harm, but some people might see that as, potentially crossing that line a little bit. But it is asking for justice to be in the right spot, on the right heads, and not on those who don't deserve it. So, justice work through things like keeping protesters safe, and especially doing things like Black Lives Matter, and aligning with our queer community, the LGBTQIA plus community, and just making sure that we are speaking up and not speaking over people as well. So I think that's something I see really heavily in the witchcraft community. And there are outliers and there are people who don't agree. But as a whole, generally, we are a very welcoming, inclusive community for people who don't fit into those boxes to have a spiritual expression that feels right for them.
And that is just so important that that people can feel that, they can feel that comfort. And I was going to ask you a question, but I'm going to answer this myself. I was going to ask, what would you say to someone who's maybe a young woman who's exploring, or maybe to their family to understand? And for me, because I went through it, I'm going to say, walk the journey with them. You don't have to take on their beliefs, but learn and understand what they're about, and you'll be enriched by exploring it with them.
Yes, absolutely. My own mother has had to do that as well. I remember the first time I told her that I was reading with tarot cards. I had been reading with them for a couple of years, but I hadn't told her because I didn't know where she'd stand, having had, similar background to myself, obviously. And she was going through such a hard time, and my husband's nudging me, going, "Go on, tell her. Go on, go. You can help her." And I thought, "Oh, finally, all right, I'll tell her. I think I have a tool I can help you through this situation with, if you're open to it. It's called the tarot." And she was so open to it. So it was really beautiful to see that. And she comes to me all the time for readings now.
So, Hannah, where can people find you?
People can find me online, suburbanwitchery.com. I'm on all social media platforms as Suburban Witchery. And you can also listen to my podcast, which is called Witch Talks with Suburban Witchery.
Thank you, Hannah, for being a guest on the show. And don't forget, brew the change, create space for someone in your life to explore their beliefs without needing to fix, correct, or fear them. And until next time, let love be the loudest voice.